Medieval legends have a way of standing the test of time. From Arthurian literature to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the legend of the Black Knight has managed to survive in countless forms throughout the centuries. Typically portrayed as a villainous, mysterious character, the Black Knight often masks their identity and swears fealty to no lord or lady like other knights do. Under the shroud of anonymity, a Black Knight will conduct many a foul deed, usually riding on the back of a shadowy steed and ultimately defeated by their polar opposite, a righteous white knight sworn to do good. A tale as old as time, these two knights of light and dark are the embodiment of the eternal moral struggle between good and evil, with the stock character of the Black Knight commonly being associated with death and darkness. These are just legends, of course. Or are they? It has been said that every legend is rooted somewhere in truth. While the Black Knight has always been a metaphorical figure, a personification of the notion of evil, could there be a real knight clad in shadow that first inspired the myth? Perhaps it's time you're acquainted with SCP-5151, which might just be the original Black Knight himself. As the name suggests, SCP-5151 is a humanoid male figure who is originally from the medieval era. He sports chainmail armor, specifically a type called a hauberk, which is chainmail that forms a full coat or tunic, and he also wears a laurel wreath around his head. He often refers to himself as the Black Knight, although he also claims to have been known by other names and titles throughout history. According to observations made by the SCP Foundation, the Knight never requires food, water, or rest in order to survive, although he has been seen to eat and drink purely for the enjoyment of it. Even though he appears to wear armor and clothing beneath, every aspect of SCP-5151's clothing and his body share the same anomalous properties. Every part of him, his armor, his garments, and his longsword can phase through surfaces and objects as if the Knight was incorporeal. SCP-5151 also appears to be able to alter his physical properties at will, either becoming solid or more ghost-like when he so chooses to. As you can probably imagine, the Foundation has found it somewhat difficult to contain the Black Knight thanks to these abilities. SCP-5151 also possesses an extraordinary method of attack. When confronted with a target, the Knight will deem whether the person is either worthy or dishonorable, though the criteria he is judging by seems to be his own mysterious standards. Should SCP-5151 find someone to be dishonorable, he will stab them directly through their aorta with his longsword. Rather than merely dispatch them, though, the Black Knight will then proceed to drain every drop of blood from his target's body until they are little more than a dry husk. This was first witnessed during the Foundation's preliminary encounter with SCP-5151. Alerted to reports of vigilantism taking place across a number of French provinces, the SCP Foundation followed this lead to find a trail of bodies across Alsace, Lorraine, Champagne, and Orléans. The SCP Foundation dispatched one of their many mobile task forces, MTF-Pi-1, also known under the codename City Slickers, to look into the series of murders. What they soon found was that these slain victims were anything but innocent, being guilty of multiple murders themselves, as well as the abduction and trafficking of 18 children from a French orphanage. During their investigation, Mobile Task Force agents discovered the bodies of these criminals had been killed by exsanguination, the process of extracting all the blood from their bodies. The victims possessed matching stab wounds that pierced their aortas, but forensic analysis uncovered no traces of blood appearing anywhere on their clothing. Acting quickly, the City Slickers apprehended another man who had been involved in the same criminal activities as the other two victims, in the hopes of drawing the killer out into the open by using the trafficker as bait. A plan which, as it turned out, would bring SCP-5151 right to them. While the Mobile Task Force were transporting the surviving trafficker, their vehicles were halted by a figure standing directly in their path. As the City Slickers hit their brakes, SCP-5151 began to slowly approach them, ignoring the agent's warning not to step any closer. One operative opened fire on the approaching entity, but the conventional arms fire had no effect on the Knight, with the bullets passing right through his intangible form. The Foundation MTF agents instead tried to restrain SCP-5151, only to find that they could not physically grab him, their hands simply passing through the Black Knight's body. Reaching his target, SCP-5151 dispatched of the remaining criminal in the same way he had killed the previous two, by stabbing his longsword directly into the trafficker's aorta and rapidly draining the blood from him. Then the Black Knight turned on the operatives that had shot at him, lunging for the Foundation agent and finishing him in the exact same way as his other victims. Immediately after killing the Mobile Task Force agent, SCP-5151 seemed to surrender, sheathing his weapon and raising his hands in submission before offering a greeting to the remaining members of MTF-Pi-1.
"Brave fellows, do not worry about him. I disposed of him as I have with others of his lot. Loyalty is a virtue, and the lack of it will lead to the death of chivalry. My presence is a testament that chivalry will never die. With this being said, I understand you have been searching for me. Pray tell, what you might need of me."
The MTF agents were not about to engage in a parley with a ghostly knight, and they contacted command at SCP Foundation Site 06-3. The site director in turn dispatched Dr. Sylvain Moreau, the senior researcher at Site 06-3, to conduct an on-site interview with SCP-5151, which took place on the roadside where the knight had confronted the Mobile Task Force. Interestingly, not only did SCP-5151 seem to engage Dr. Moreau with respect and friendly candor, but he also appeared to be fluent in French, which the doctor conducted the interview in. As they exchanged greetings, the knight was complaint with the questions posed to him, apparently respectful of Moreau's position as a doctor. When asked, SCP-5151 explained that he had attacked the Foundation agent who shot at him because he deemed this individual to be worth less than the ground he stood upon. Moreau asked for further clarity on how SCP-5151 determined worthiness, to which the Black Knight replied by quoting Aeschylus, an ancient Greek playwright often known as the father of Greek tragedy. SCP-5151 claimed, "There is no disease that I spit on more than treachery," and even claimed to know Aeschylus personally as a good man. Over the course of their conversation, Dr. Moreau was able to convince SCP-5151 to submit to containment with the Foundation. However, the knight made specific requests for his accommodation. "I will need plenty of space to practice my swordplay. I will also need a retinue to train. Provide me with your 7 best agents, as you called them. Men of virtue, brave, and those with reactions of a white eagle. I do not intend to deliver my second best on any soul during training. We will train every Tuesday and every Thursday. We will have a grand banquet to celebrate our training every Sunday. The other days you may use my men as you see fit, good doctor. Comply with my requests and you shall have a deal, good sir." The knight's requests were approved by the site director of Site 06-3, but before he submitted to containment, SCP-5151 displayed another of his anomalous abilities. The Black Knight requested to make a blood pact with Dr. Moreau and his group of assistants. The senior researcher reluctantly agreed. Containing an entity that could pass through walls would be much easier if SCP-5151 was more cooperative after all. Moreau was instructed to slice open his hand and then accept a handshake from the knight. Doing so caused an anomalous marking to form on the doctor's and his researchers' right hands at the same time. When they all held out their hands and compared the markings, they saw that they were letters that spelled onerous, referred to by Foundation researchers as an instance of SCP-5151-2. This mark caused a notable burning sensation for Dr. Moreau and his team as he made his pact with the Black Knight. Some of the research assistants also reported feelings of dread or inadequacy as well as an increase in stress levels. However, it is unknown whether SCP-5151-2 causes these directly, or if these are merely side effects of this permanent mark appearing on the skin. In order to meet the conditions of SCP-5151 set for his containment, the SCP Foundation transferred him to a cell at Site 06-3. Any and all electrical devices were banned from use inside the cell, with the only exception being a microphone to record audio. Even the light fixtures were replaced with oil-burning lamps to give the Black Knight's accommodation a more medieval feel. The site director also authorized the creation of a completely new mobile task force, designated as either MTF-Pi-7 or the rather appropriate codename, the Honor-Bound Knights. This unit was made up of 7 of the SCP Foundation's finest operatives, hand-selected specifically for their proficiency and skill in hand-to-hand combat. Each member of the Honor-Bound Knights wasn't just to be a skilled combatant, but also needed to create a sense of compatibility and rapport with SCP-5151, given how much time they would be spending around the Black Knight. and multiple mornings throughout the week, every member of the honor-bound Knights is instructed to enter the cell of SCP-5151. Over the course of the next 7 long hours, the Mobile Task Force agents will spar and train with the Black Knight. SCP-5151 is known to be a formidable fighter, believed to have lived for centuries, which has given him ample time to hone his own skill with a blade. Every Sunday evening, after they finish their long hours of sparring, a wooden table and chairs are brought into the cell. Each one of the honor-bound Knights will then join SCP-5151 sitting around the table with him as they share a medieval meal. Foundation personnel will provide the group with bread, pies, roasted pig and poultry, stews and soups, as well as wine. Together with the 7 members of the honor-bound Knights, the Black Knight will eat, drink, and revel until he eventually passes out. Then and only then are the operatives of Mobile Task Force Pi-7 permitted to leave their seats. It would seem that the Black Knight had exactly what he wanted most, a loyal group of fellow warriors to spar against and celebrate with. However, one member of the unit was noticed to be acting strangely and was placed under investigation. He was discovered to be in possession of several highly classified SCP Foundation documents, as well as instructions to abduct an unknown SCP held in containment. Site-06-3 staff believe this individual was working on behalf of the Chaos Insurgency, a known group of interest. The Foundation had encountered a number of anomalous groups over its many long years of pursuing and containing SCPs. Among them, the Chaos Insurgency is perhaps the best known. Formed by former members of the Foundation itself, the Insurgency rivals the organization they once defected from, hoping to one day undermine and destroy it. While their knowledge of SCPs is more limited, they are far less restricted by rules and regulations. What the Insurgency wanted with the Black Knight is a mystery, but we're willing to guess that they wouldn't get on well with SCP-5151, given his feelings about treachery. And should the Chaos Insurgency ever get their way and manage to capture SCP-5151, they might find that capturing him came with a price paid in blood. Now go check out SCP-2273 Major Alexei Belatrov and SCP-1879 Indoor Salesman for more strange beings from the SCP Foundation.